It is my understanding that President Trump may not even believe in global warming. It is speculated that the refrigerant that we've used for the last 30 years is contributing to global warming. There is a phase down that President Trump, in signing the AIM Act, would bring the phase down of the use of 410A gradually within about a 15-year span. The Biden EPA mandated that we make this change immediately. This is going to kill and hurt inflation. And worse yet, it's going against President Trump's initiative, which is to bring jobs back to the USA. 80% of this refrigerant is being manufactured in China. I don't expect this to be a priority to him, but it will become a priority when he's sweating in his mansion because it's hot and they can't get refrigerant gas to fix the system. Make American air conditioning affordable again.
You know, George, America is going through a crisis right now that some people that may have not been touched on this yet, and potentially will be with the summer coming. You're the VP of sales for iGas. You know, walk the audience through what's going on right now, man.
Sure. And it's scary because a lot do not know what's about to happen. But unfortunately, many in the South already know what's happening. That is, there's not enough refrigerant gas to go around to help the air conditioning contractors install new systems. Moreover, the cost of new air conditioning systems have dramatically increased the installed cost. And the reasoning for both of these issues was a Biden-era EPA rule that went into effect on January 1st of this year, which now mandates that all the manufacturers of air conditioning systems to use one of two refrigerants. They're both flammable. Refrigerants in the past have not been flammable, but these both refrigerants are now flammable. And of these two refrigerants, the one being used the most is R454, which is a patented refrigerant. And there just isn't enough going around. The manufacturers barely have enough to manufacture the systems. But more importantly, when an air conditioning contractor goes out to your house, you're going to find out, number one, they can't top off the system, meaning they can't properly install the system because of the deficit of the refrigerant gas. Number two, they're going to pay much, much more for this refrigerant, as high as 600% more for this patented refrigerant gas that there's just not enough to get around.
That's interesting. So when the Biden administration came in and set this bill or whatever it was effective January 1 to utilize gases that are, you know, EPA friendly, what does that actually mean? What was being used before and why was it so bad in the beginning?
Okay, well, you have to ask yourself, do you believe in global warming? Some do, some don't. If you believe in global warming, the EPA, the United States ratified the Kigali Agreement, and the Kigali Agreement was a global agreement where global warming was the issue. And it is speculated that R410A refrigerant, the refrigerant that we've used for the last 30 years, is contributing to global warming. And if that is true, and if that is the case, there is a phase down that President Trump, in signing the AIM Act in 2019 that went into effect 2020, would bring the phase down of the use of 410A gradually within about a 15-year span so that we would slowly transition to these new flammable gases. But what happened was the Biden EPA in October of 2023 mandated that we make this change immediately. And within 15 months, we are the only country on the planet that is doing this. There are over 200 countries that have ratified the Kigali Agreement. So many countries are following the phase down, but we are the only country on the planet that mandated for us to make this change within a 15-month period. And it's impossible, it's unachievable, and it's unattainable. That's why today we're suffering. The issue is the summer really isn't even here yet. That's really when we're going to see it. Americans, 50 to 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And when you're faced with a staggering cost to replace an air conditioning system or even repair an air conditioning system due to the elevated increased price of the refrigerant gas, it's virtually impossible to mandate and control. This is going to kill and hurt inflation. And worse yet, it's going contrary 100% against President Trump's initiative, which is to bring jobs back to the USA. The sad part is this patented refrigerant, 80% of this refrigerant is being manufactured in China. So it's not even US made. It's made in China. It's being shipped from China to Mexico, where the vast majority of all the air conditioning systems utilized in the United States are manufactured. And then crossing the border into the United States with no tariffs, no duties due to the North American Trade Act. So the US government is not receiving what it should in terms of benefits such as the tariffs and the duties, but moreover, the consumers are the ones who are faced with paying the bill, footing the bill.
That's interesting. Thank you for that background. You know, to me, when I'm listening, I'm hearing a simple economic thing, right? It's called supply and demand. With Biden accelerating that to make it go immediately, right, instead of gradual over how many years. Now we have a supply issue, right, which is driving up the cost. You know, I just see it as that, right? Because, you know, the reason why it's so expensive now is because there's not enough of it. We don't have time to make it. So it's driving up the cost of it. I just wonder when things like this, like, you know, you can look at the global warming aspect of it. Fine. Like I can get down with that. You know, I'm not here to say whether it's real or it's fake. What I am saying is it doesn't sound like this was very well thought through from an American people's pocket standpoint.
Exactly. I think that the industry should have had and played a role in this decision. Unfortunately, we weren't. And the result is what's happening today. And I tell everyone, speak to a friend, a neighbor, a colleague, a family member, anyone who has just recently replaced an air conditioning system. You will see what's happening. You will hear what's happening, and you will learn what's happening. I say, listen to me, but don't believe me. Talk to your neighbors, friends, and colleagues. You're going to see the reality of what's happening. And it's only going to get worse every day that goes by now that the summer season is upon us. And the only salvation that we feel can take place is to have either the administrator of the EPA, Mr. Lee Zeldin, or President Trump to simply remove the HVAC management rule and the technology transition rule that was enacted by under President Biden's EPA. Just get rid of it. The phase down under the AIM Act, the Kigali Agreement, it's already in place. A great analogy is if I'm wearing my trousers and I'm putting on a belt to secure it, but having to put on also suspenders. You don't need a belt and suspenders. We don't need the HVAC management rule, the technology transition rule, and the AIM Act. Simply go with the AIM Act and follow the AIM Act like the rest of the world did. That's all we need to do.
I'm wondering why the decision was made, though, right? Because if the rest of the world is following a certain, you know, trend or a certain cadence on this, right? It's like, why would we jump the gun and cut all the other two gases off immediately? Because here's the other thing that I heard you say, and I want to back up for the audience, is that those other gases were not flammable. These other two gases are flammable. So when I'm looking at this as a homeowner, sorry, and I'm in Florida and it's about to be hurricane season, there's a couple things that really concern me, George, is okay, if something goes through and something trips, like maybe even lightning hits my unit, well, now it can catch on fire. Before it couldn't, right? So there's a lot of different things at play here. Flammability, and then also just the hurricane in general taking out my unit. Now I'm forced, and these other homeowners are forced in the southern states that are in Hurricane Alley to deal with a bigger issue than they're ready for.
Exactly. These refrigerants are officially rated A2L refrigerants. And how and why the decision was made, I wish I was involved with the EPA back in October of 2023. I wish I would have consulted or been consulted with back in October of 2023. The only logical explanation they could have would be simply to speed up the migration to the new non-global warming potential gases. Other than that, I can't understand why they would have done what they've done.
Yeah, I can appreciate the overall thought of, if this isn't environmentally friendly, let's make a move. But to move so quickly to a point where it puts people in jeopardy of, like you said, 50 to 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
Exactly. And that's a reality. And when you have to repair an air conditioning system, and we're talking a repair that might have cost you $150 to $200, now costing you $600 to $800, or to replace a system. Look at the air conditioning system cost 15 months ago, 18 months ago. A 3-ton air conditioner would be installed for $3,000 to $4,000 on average. That
Mm-hmm.
same air conditioner today, minimum $8,000 to $11,000. So the costs associated with the purchase and installation of air conditioning systems are now greatly, greatly increased. And unfortunately, the consumers who are going to be experiencing problems this summer are going to pay the bill. And it's expected and calculated that 23 to 25 billion dollars in additional dollars will be spent in 2025 alone for air conditioning systems due to these two rules that the EPA enacted. And it needs to change. It can't happen. America can't afford to pay an additional $25 billion for air conditioning for no reason at all.
Man, when you're talking about just the cost of the gas and the things, from 3,000 to 8 to 11,000, that's one thing, right? But then you talked about installation. That's cost of labor. Now these companies have to pay their people, their installers, a premium to offset, right? They have to charge so much money for that labor aspect of it now, and so the consumer is just not getting hit on the cost of the gas, or the tariffs, or the parts that they can't even get, or whatever, right? They're getting hit on the installation. They're getting hit on the labor.
Well, you're right. But look at the contractor's position as well. The contractor has the unfortunate role of convincing the consumer to replace the air conditioning system because it's required, but then informing them that they're not able to have the the refrigerant necessary to properly install the system. So in many cases, they're installing an air conditioning system with a deficit of the refrigerant gas necessary because it's just not available. These cylinders of refrigerant gas, the 454B is the nomenclature of the refrigerant gas. This refrigerant gas, it comes in roughly a 20 to 21 pound cylinder. This 20 to 21 pound cylinder, traditionally based on typical refrigerant costs, such as 410A, would typically cost $50 to $75 for that volume of refrigerant gas, maybe $90 for that volume of gas. With 454, that cylinder is now $1,000 if you can find it. So it's a tremendous cost. And that's where the issues truly lie. The contractors facing the consumers and explaining to the consumers, I've got your air conditioning system. Yes, it costs a lot more. And guess what? I don't have and I can't find the refrigerant necessary to properly install your air conditioning system.
So I'm like thinking of a lot of different things. I'm thinking of the danger behind this. Let's say someone's AC unit goes out and they have a young child, and they're forced to be in a home that doesn't have any AC. Now that child dehydrates, so they're not only just dealing with that, but they're having to go and take their child to the hospital to get fluids, to get into an area where they can cool down. I see so many different things going on here, man. Like
Yes.
maybe that's the father in me, right? I'm thinking, well, damn,
absolutely, absolutely. So you're right, and it's not only the safety at home, but the safety in the wholesale distribution houses that will inventory this refrigerant gas. They're now mandated, and it's different per municipality, per state. So there isn't one rule that will govern the whole United States. No, every municipality and every state of this country will have a specific fire rule on how you will store and transport. Then the DOT. The US DOT, there are restrictions regarding A2L refrigerants and the transportation of A2L refrigerants. So these are the many issues that have come to light, and the increase in costs are associated to all of these restrictions and all of these changes and mandates and leak detection systems for the refrigeration, the cold chain. When you look at the supermarkets, the changes because of these rules. It used to be a supermarket, if say a Publix or a Kroger, if any of their stores had a leak in any of their refrigeration systems, they would simply repair the leak and replace the refrigerant that leaked out. Well, with these new rules, if you lost more than 15 pounds of refrigerant in that system, you must now, under the laws, recharge the systems with reclaimed refrigerant. You can no longer use new virgin refrigerant. You must utilize reclaimed refrigerant, which is you can't even find, and it's very, very expensive. And if you can't do that, these stores are forced to replace their systems with a whole new refrigeration systems. And we're talking a refrigeration system of a rack system in a supermarket may cost minimum $100,000 to $500,000 per store. So when you look at very large franchises, very large corporations, we're talking about a capital investment that is not it's just not in the budget. But more importantly, what about the small mom and pop grocery stores?
That's exactly where I was going in my mind with it, man.
Exactly. How do they afford? We're talking single digit profit margins that many of these companies are achieving. How do you utilize the capital that you have to invest in such a capital expenditure? You can't. So it's unrealistic. It's as if the EPA never really thought this out. And it really shouldn't be this way. That's why there's hope. The hope is that the word gets out to Lee Zeldin and or President Trump, and they will end it and remove it because they're the only ones left that can do it.
Let me ask you a question about Zeldin. You would think he would know, right? I'm assuming, right? He's part of the EPA, correct? Like, correct. Does he not know this is going on? Does he not know this is an issue?
I have to assume that he knows, but I'm assuming. I would assume that Lee Zeldin doesn't have the time to speak to me or anybody else in my position, but I'm sure that his aides do, and his aides hopefully have shared this information with Lee Zeldin. There has been talk that Lee Zeldin is aware of the issue, but not the magnitude of the issue. And that's where I think the crescendo of this issue is imminent. It's going to happen soon. The heat is here. And when enough of the right people have this issue, that it will be forced to be dealt with. Because remember, nobody's immune to this, Shawn. It doesn't matter. It could be
not even them.
Exactly. And that's why nobody is immune to this. And when it affects them or somebody they know or love, then hopefully they will do something about it.
You know, I can appreciate, Lee Zeldin, like maybe not getting the information or maybe just saying, hey, I'm too busy to even deal with this. But to me, being involved in that organization, to me, it's almost a prerequisite. Now, from Trump's standpoint, there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world, right? You had the riots out in LA, then you had everything going on with Iran this past weekend. Yeah. But for it to get on his desk, like that's the last part, right? Because it can't go to the floor now. We're past that. It has to be, and I want the audience to really understand that, like, it cannot be voted on. Trump literally has to go and say no and sign it. Like, we are reverting back. We're going to do a slow fade into this thing. This is not good for the American people. This is very difficult. It's hard for me, dude, because like I'm such a softie, George, because like, and again, I'm nowhere near as busy as Donald Trump or even Mr. Lee Zeldin, but I can tell you something. If I do something, right, and I know it's going to impact somebody in a negative way, or I'm seeing something, I do whatever I can to bring it to the forefront and try to fix it.
Shawn, you're right on. I mean, this is about what your first question, right or wrong or good or bad. This is doing the right thing for the right people. And it's my understanding that President Trump may not even believe in global warming. So that's why I truly believe that if he caught wind of this, and I understand he's very busy,
Yeah.
and I don't expect this to be a priority to him, but it will become a priority when he's sweating in his mansion, or his family members are sweating because it's hot and they can't get refrigerant gas to fix the system. That's when it will come to light. And that's why I'm saying the crescendo will be soon. It's going to happen. It's here now, but the heat, the sustained heat nationwide hasn't been here. We've been very hot in the South, especially in Florida, which is where our headquarters or world headquarters are.
Yep.
But as soon as the rest of the country has sustained heat for any period of time, that's when we will experience the major issues.
You know, I'm wondering, my question to you is how do some of these small to mid-sized businesses, how are they dealing with this issue, right? Because you're in Florida. I mean, Florida is like the mecca for small to mid-sized businesses, right? Mom and pop. So like there's a lot of HVAC companies running around here in Southwest Florida. How do you think they're feeling about this situation? How is it impacting them?
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because just today, the Air Conditioning Contractors Association of Florida, I had a long conversation with them today, because they're the voice of the contractor, and they're the ones who are searching and pleading for an answer. I've been in many forums in the last 12 weeks, or venues in the last 12 weeks, where I've been with many of the manufacturers of air conditioning systems, many of the manufacturers of refrigerant gas, where we've had the forum and the ability and the venue for the contractors to reach out and ask questions. And the overwhelming concern with the air conditioning contractors is the lack of answers as to why this is happening or what the solution is. So they've been in many of these forums where they're listening to the problem, and they know and understand the problem, and they're dealing with the consumers, and they simply want an answer. How and when will this be resolved? And nobody can answer that question. So at this point, the only thing that can happen is to either have Mr. Lee Zeldin or Mr. President Trump do something about it.
So Lee Zeldin can actually make that move too. He doesn't even need Trump. He can make it.
Either one of the two have the ability to have this taken care of. To your point earlier, we did work with the Senate and the House to support two separate resolutions for Congress to vote on, which unfortunately just never made it, never gained enough support. And at this point, as you stated, the time has passed. So at this point, we have to petition Mr. Zeldin and Mr. Trump to get this fixed, get this done.
Well, you know, for the people listening and watching, is there a way to do that? You know, petition it? Like, is there a website? What are the resources to start that type of movement?
Go to www.maacaa.org. Make American Air Conditioning Affordable Again.org.
Oh, very nice. That's a nice campaign that you would think Trump would get behind, man.
Yes, right. And I would hope. Simply go to the website and go to change. There's a link to change.org. There's a petition, and this petition will be forwarded to Lee Zeldin and to President Trump. And that's why we're asking for anyone and everyone who has an air conditioning system or cares about what's happening to please go to the website, maacaa.org, hit the link, hit the support button, and sign the petition. Let's get this taken care of. We're not talking about hurting the environment, because we respect the CLEAN Act. We respect the phase down. We believe in the phase down. We simply do not feel that we should be forced to do it right away and forced to switch to one of two refrigerants and be the only country on the planet forced to do so. That shouldn't be the case.
So maacaa.org. Go there. You know, I so thank you for that, because I'm actually asking for my household as well, right? Like, I want to know how at least I can have some peace of mind if I take action on something. And to your point, like, yes, we want to respect this changeover, but at the same time, for it to be so quick and so hasty to a point where there's not enough gas. Let me ask you this question. How many companies are making these two gases?
It's patented, and there's 2 companies that own the patent.
So a duopoly.
Yes.
Keep going. Wow.
Well, it is what it is. There's not much else to say.
Yeah.
My issue, and I think the industry issue, really isn't with the 2 manufacturers or with the patent. It really is with the EPA. Because why mandate that we, as an industry, the air conditioning industry and the refrigeration industry, why mandate that we switch immediately to a 700 GWP gas or lower when no other country on the planet ever did this or ever came up with this? Why? There's no reason for it. GWP is global warming potential. Each refrigerant gas has its own global warming potential. It's rated from 0 to 10,000.
Okay.
And the lower the GWP, the less probability that it will contribute to global warming. And the EPA said, well, you must be 700 GWP or lower. There are only 2 gases that are below 700 GWP. One is 454B, which is about 460 GWP, and the other is R32, which is about 680 GWP. So it's just below the 700 threshold. So these are the only 2 gases that are allowed to be utilized in the United States for new air conditioning systems as of January 1st, 2025. And
Wow.
that's where this issue stems from.
That's interesting. What was the global warming potential on the gases that were used prior to 2025?
2,800, and it's the range, 2,800. But understand this, Shawn, the phase down gives the U.S. under the Kigali Agreement, it gives us a threshold, a limit of gases that we can utilize. And they and actually calculate with the molecules. The 410A, although it's 2,800, is still within the limits when you look at the threshold that the AIM Act has held. And the threshold continues to be lowered as years go down. That way, it will naturally it would naturally bring the evolution to a new gas or switch to a new gas based on market conditions. And that's how typically it has been done. That's how the rest of the world is doing it. And that's how it should be now. The manufacturers should have, based on calculations of how much refrigerant gas they need and what the threshold is at that given year, utilize any gas they want to, as long as they stay below the threshold. And that, if we did that, and that's the heart of the AIM Act, we would be fine. And it would take about 10 to 15 years to transition to the newer gases. But the fact that they said the EPA said that starting January 1st, you must switch to a gas that's 700 or below, automatically limiting it to 2 refrigerants, and you have 15 months to do it in, it just threw the whole industry in a whirl.
You know, it's interesting, and I can't help but to think of this. It's one thing for an organization to make decisions based on something that will never impact them. They're literally signing on the dotted line, and they know they could be potentially impacted. Like,
exactly. It's like, who's thinking about this?
What the fuck? Like, what do you even, like, how does that even make sense?
Exactly.
You know, if anything, they would have been like, should have been like, wait a second. We're going to do this gradual. We can't do this right away. Everybody's going to be impacted. This just isn't one segment of people. And even then, it's still messed up, man. Because I'm just thinking about all those inner city, communities.
Exactly.
I mean,
how about the nursing homes?
How about hospitals?
The hospitals. What's going to happen? And that's why I hope that the solution or that the resolution is handled quickly, because it really does need to be faced and challenged and repealed immediately as soon as possible. And just knowing that there is the ability to get that done, it's my responsibility, it's your responsibility, it's our collective responsibility to share the word, get everybody involved, and have the president and or Lee Zeldin listen. I believe that's all it's going to take. They need to hear it from us. And fortunately, we live in a world where we can and will have our voice shared and heard. So I challenge everybody to go to the website, sign the petition, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to everybody you know. Let's get the word out. Let's get this changed, and let's fix this problem that exists today.
I like it, and that's why I'm here, right? I
Absolutely.
when I was approached with this, I'm like, absolutely, this is a responsibility, not just to tell a story about what's happening, as a human interest piece, but to really filter the information to the listener so they're aware of what's going on. My only hope is to the audience that you guys take action on this. It's going to take you 5 to 10 minutes to go sign a petition that could potentially impact you or your mom or your grandparent. Like it doesn't take much to be a part of the movement that helps this. You've been doing a lot, right? You've been on some news channels and some things like that. Walk me through that, how it's been for you. Have many people been enlightened by the information that you give, and then the second part would be, how close do you think we really are from getting enough people to sign something like this in order to overturn it?
Good question. We're in our infancy stage regarding how close we are,
Okay.
because we literally began, the website became live a week ago.
Oh,
The petition became live a week ago, although we've been petitioning for change and advocacy, working with senators and working with the House and the Senate and Congress for the last 3 months. But it's only been within the last week that we decided, let's go to the people, because the people are the ones who are going to pay. The contractors are the ones who are facing the consumers. So let's go to the contractors, let's go to the people and share the story with the people and allow them to act. So that's really what's happened. I was very pleased today. I had one of my colleagues here in the office today say, George, I was on the phone today with a customer in California, and they said that they heard that there's a movement to make this change. And I said, are you serious? In California? I haven't spoken to anybody in California, but I have been on many, as you stated, TV programs or blogs and vlogs. And I would like to think that maybe it is spreading. Maybe people are listening. Maybe people are talking. Maybe people are sharing. And if that truly is the case, that's what America's all about. People helping people, and us as a nation standing together and fighting for what's right. And that's all this is. Let's fix this. It's a problem. Let's fix it.
The thing that I love most about all of what you're saying is you're not challenging the decision, you're challenging the implementation. See, I think everything in life is about implementation and execution, right? How you implement a strategy can change the overall complexion of the execution. And what we have here is just, to me, is just like, a blindfold pin the tail on the donkey. Like that's just the way I see it.
Shawn, you're right. You're right. And unfortunately, we live in a world with a lot of greed. And that's the reality. And it's always been this way, and it hasn't changed, and it's not going to change. But when people look at me and look at what we're doing and look at what we get out of this, I get nothing out of this.
Yeah.
My motivation is helping people, ensuring them doing the right thing. And that's what, in the spirit of everything we're doing and saying, it's about doing right for all Americans. Doesn't matter your race, color. It doesn't matter whether you're wealthy. Nothing matters. You're a human being, and you're living here in the United States, and you are being taken advantage of as an American citizen if you own an air conditioning system. Let's fix it, guys. It's not that difficult.
I have to ask this question. Because as we're sitting here talking, I'm hearing your side of it. Is there anybody on the opposition side of it that says, no, this is like a really good thing, and here's why? I want to spend more money because of X, Y, Z. And it can't be just because of global warming. Like, come on. Like,
that's a great question. I can tell you, I haven't heard anybody, one person who says, George, I do not agree with you. George, I oppose your thoughts and your statements because of never happened, not one time. So
It's interesting.
I got to believe people are going to listen to this and they're going to say, he's right. Let's get this done. Let's spread the word. Let's get this done.
Because I'm like thinking of certain things that I could do right on my end to get people to that link and get people to take action. And I'm almost like certain things that I will put out there. You always know, like, here's the opposition, right? Here's the argument on the other side. And I just don't see how there could be one here, because this isn't about a divisive thing. It's like, it's not, two ends of the spectrum. It's like, hey, this literally affects all of us, like quite literally, and, I'm sitting here freaking out. I'm like, damn, I hope my AC doesn't go out this summer, because every single summer, something happens here in Florida to your AC, whether it's leaking or, flooding because it's frozen, it has to be, vacuumed out. You would have to think that some of these AC companies and these contractors are going to also charge more labor for those things as well to offset things.
No, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And hence why I mentioned the fact that speaking to the air conditioning contractors here in Florida, it is a major issue. And their concern is how we deal with this for our consumers. They're unfortunately faced with the position where they're working on the system with the consumer and they're facing the consumer and not being able to resolve their issue, or worse yet, resolving their issue, but with an astronomical cost associated with doing so. It puts them in a very bad situation. So even the air conditioning contractors are victims in this as well.
So one of my my HVAC contractor is a good friend of mine. Okay.
Did you call him and ask him?
I'm fixing to as soon as I leave here. I was like, hey man, I just had this conversation. You got to talk. Got to talk to you about this.
It's the truth.
Dude, he might lose his shit, man. But the thing that I'm thinking of is like, what's that?
You'll probably know more about it now than he does. He might
have to hire me.
Yeah.
Might have to hire me, get the word out.
Yeah.
But no, I'm thinking of like, these certain contractors, right? A lot of contractors, when they give a quote or they go to present somebody like, this is how much it's going to cost. Like I'm starting to try to put myself in their shoes of having to say, hey, in the past it was $3,000, but now it's 11 or 12. How do they feel about that? And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. Exactly. They can't do shit about it, man, but they still have to be that messenger,
Exactly. They were not trained. No one, it's the school of hard knocks. You learn the hard way on how you're going to share this information with the consumer, but moreover, how to convince them that this is the reality we live in and there's nothing they can do about it. And unfortunately, for many contractors, that's simply going to mean the consumer is going to question their integrity, because the first time, if you're accustomed to paying X dollars for air conditioning systems or service on air conditioning systems over your last 10 or 15 years of owning systems, and then all of a sudden somebody this year comes to you and says it's this much, that consumer's going to shop. And that contractor who had a great customer that they dealt with for the last 10 years, now it's a liability for them. This customer who I really thought was a loyal customer and really believed in me is now questioning me because these numbers are unrealistic. This can't be true. This is happening. And I've had contractors tell me this. And that puts them in, that hurts their P&L because they're losing business. They're being challenged by the consumers and questioned by the consumers. And it's not right. They shouldn't be in that position. They're caught in the middle between the manufacturers of the air conditioning systems who are forced to charge more and the consumer who doesn't have the money necessary to pay the higher price. So that's a bad position to be in as a contractor. I would not want to be a contractor today.
No, I mean, that's my point, right? Like you're hitting the nail on the head. It's they're putting the contractor in a position to not be trusted and lose like, hey, I used to work with this HVAC company. Don't go to them because they are greedy. they gave me a quote for $11,000 for a new unit when I know it cost me $3,000. That's their paradigm. That's what they're seeing the world in, right? Their perspective. So it's like, yes, in the past, that is true, but you don't have all the information. So imagine the small to mid-sized HVAC company here in Florida loses what? Maybe 15, 20 customers. Think about what that looks like on a maintenance plan. How much money are they losing for their bottom line? And then boom, right? That puts small companies out of business.
Exactly. Many companies have worked generational. I know air conditioning companies that are second and third generation.
Yeah.
They work very, very hard, not one to stay in business that long and to build a reputation, but then to have it challenged and questioned. It's happening today. And every single contractor I talk to, they're faced with that challenge today and how they resolve the issue and confront their customer. It's a very difficult situation to be in. That's why I would not want to be in their shoes today. I really feel for them today.
Oh, man. You know what, George? Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing what's going on in this environment and bringing some light to it for some of the listeners. I can guarantee you a bulk of them haven't heard this before, haven't seen this before, and now they're privy to the information so they can go out and do what they do. But as we land the plane, I want to ask you one more question, and it's one I ask on every show. This is the Determined Society, right? That's what this is called. When this show was conceived, I thought to myself, I just want to wake up in a society that is determined to chase their dreams, no matter how they feel emotionally about it at that time. So my question to you is, what does determination mean to you?
It means doing the right thing for the right reason and having the resources and the wherewithal and the ability to get it done. And that's what it's about to me. And I believe that that's exactly what I'm doing. That's exactly what you're doing the right thing for the right reason to the right people.
I love it. I love it, George. Thank you so much. Jorge Alvarez, iGas, the best for less. Go check him out. maacaa.org. Sign the petition. Overturn this bad boy, guys. Be part of the movement so you guys don't have to pay astronomical prices for your units. And until next time, guys, stay determined.